self-deception is basically never single player, right? There are always other people around you who are complicit in this thing, and that's an essential part of why it works.
I don't know that you'd want to live in a world of absolute 100% honesty, right?
It's like, you don't want to know, right? You really, really don't want to know.
There's a great science fiction book called The Fifth Science, and he's talking about planets that go into narrative collapse because nobody knows what's real or not real.
All we're really doing here is participating in the maintenance of other people's fantasies in order to make it okay. I help your cope, you help my cope, and we are both better off, right?
Isn't everything theater?
The point of Don Quixote of La Mancha is like, is it in fact heroic to support the delusions of others and prevent them from crashing down? The answer is quite possibly.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Jim O'Shaughnessy with one of my favorite guests, my supposedly recurring guests who ain't been recurring, Alex Danco. Welcome back.
Fix it. Jim, thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, sorry. It was very bizarre how much I look forward to this today. Like I saw it on my calendar, I'm like, awesome! This is great.
Oh, this is a fantastic side quest on my day, which is otherwise a wall-to-wall day, including unfortunately, normally we try to get like 2 good hours in on these shows. Today I've got to run because I have to talk to lawyers after this.
Oh man, you just killed the vibe right there. The vibe's dead.
They're cool lawyers. I'm honestly, this is what, like, our current GC and our legal team at Shopify are like some of my favorite people to work with at the company. They're honestly like really, really, really like an impressive team. So I actually like getting the chance to talk to them, but it also means that when I talk to you beforehand, I have to say like, oh, sorry, I got to go. I have to talk to lawyers. So, time honored tradition in that.
So, let's start right there, man. For people who have not heard my previous chats with Alex, this is really a long-term experiment, which essentially is, can a complex adaptive system generate enough emergence from the bottom, even from a seemingly random series of conversations, which we generally try to make our conversations.
We adhere to the randomness part. We're committed to the bit.
We really are. And my principal writer, Ed William, sent me a long email. And he said, Jim, I've been going through the transcripts with you and Alex, and fucking A, man, you're right. There is an amazing conversation coming out of this. So let's throw lawyers. Since we're on lawyers, let's throw lawyers. I've always thought that there are the kinds of lawyers I always wanted to hire, which were they look for ways for me to be able to do what I want to do, but legally. They
play offense for you.
Right. They play offense for me. And when I have to deal with the other kind of lawyers, which are the ones that just want to say no, they want to say no to everything. Like, who hires these just want to say no to everything lawyers in the first place?
Is there a reverse Peter principle for lawyers, where it's like you rise in legal seniority until the point that you can only say no to things, at which point you hire people who also say no to things?
That could be it. That in fact could be it. You get, you spend all of your time trying to figure out a way to say yes, and then you get burned enough times, right? And go up the pecking order until you get to the point where you're just like, fuck it, man. No.
Okay. Right. Okay. And then if you're reporting to a person who's only saying no, then you can also only say no to things.
Exactly.
Right. And, so in contrast, I think, like, again, our current GC, Jess Hertz, is one of these like very, very, very strong leaders who has built this legal team that is full of people who can say yes to things because they're very on the case. They're working for you, all this stuff, which is, if you are lucky and have a leader who can rise all the way to the GC or role to whatever, while actually being on offense for you, then subsequently everybody in the legal department can be great, as opposed to, it's like, no, but if somebody at that point is saying no, then it's all no.
Yep.
Maybe there's your Peter principle at work. There we go.
I totally agree. And
we did legal.
Luckily, I maintain my lawyers who mostly say yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. We solved law. Let's do medicine now.
Okay. What do you think? What do you
So
think about, okay, so everything
I don't
is
know.
AI now, right? Everything.
Oh man.
And as you know, I'm involved. But let's talk about the medical use cases of AI.
God.
It's one of the things like I'm most excited by. You?
Um, so my wife is a family doctor. And it's really interesting seeing a couple things that are sort of like things I've noticed about, practicing medicine now and all this stuff, which is one, um, something that she has pointed like there is this interesting divide in the younger generation of doctors, at least I think, where they're more willing to go look things up on the computer.
Right.
Um, is like you have an older generation of doctor where it's like the thing that was the most important was like the white coat and the formality of like the doctor is always right. Right. And like you will respect me. And I actually get it. Like I get that as a characteristic that actually has this sort of like quality that is almost like the divine, where it's like it's like when you if you tear back the curtain, it's just like this little man and not the Wizard of Oz. Something is in fact lost. Like I get that, but also it's like it's really nice to have somebody just be like, okay, well I don't know the answer to that offhand. I'm going to Google it, or not Google. You're using UpToDate or presumably something like that. But it's like let me go look that up. It's like it's kind of nice, and it feels like that to me. It's like forget the AI or whatever. It's like just like being in your practice and having a computer that you are searching continuously for things. It's like, that's actually most of the way.
I
I think.
I agree. Do you remember
Sure.
the book I sent you, Gamesmanship?
Oh,
Where
sure
where
do.
where where, where the author Stephen Potter was,
Doctorsmanship
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever that
was,
section was called.
yeah, yeah, and it was basically that he maintained in the book that it was virtually impossible to be one up on a doctor because they were the doctors in the white coats that you
That's
just
right.
referenced. And
That's right. It's the
his
highest difficulty level of upsmanship.
his solution, of course, is what I love. He says, "Be buck naked behind the doctor's desk on his phone, and when he walks in, saying, 'Hang on, just a minute.'"
On 1 minute. Just a minute. Just a minute.
But the whole white
Um,
coat thing, it actually makes sense too, because the placebo effect is incredibly powerful, right?
yeah.
And so if you see the guy in the white or woman in the white coat with the stethoscope, all that, I read a thing about placebos and the efficacy, right? So
Are you
if,
sure you read it?
yes, I am sure.
That's my. You sure? Good one. I'm gonna use that.
I don't know. My God, you're
God.
getting into a recursive loop.
Well, I thought so. I learned things.
As a large language model, I can only
Mm.
say that I don't have a memory. So I'm not sure if I
Mm.
read it or not. No,
Um,
actually, but so the whole placebo thing and the efficacy of placebos, right? So the lowest form of efficacy of a placebo is, hey man, trust me, right? It's like me saying it to you. Alex,
mm.
hey, trust me on this one.
Listen,
Then
1 out of 1 doctors recommend.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then what it keeps going up, kind of goes exponential when it's a very colorful pill
Mhm.
or shot. Actually, shots are even the most,
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but administered by someone in a white coat,
Mhm.
the stethoscope and all that.
That's
It's
right.
like
Yeah.
theater, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally.
But
It's,
but
yeah.
also doesn't, I mean, like, isn't everything theater at the end of the day? I was just talking to my team, right? And we are talking about a guy who got one of my guys who got caught up at an airport. And I'm like, I started going off on the whole TSA security theater, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
basically theater. Do
That's
you
why it's
agree?
called security theater. The well, okay, so here's something we can talk about. I actually did some homework
Wow.
for this show, which is I went and read a book on exactly this topic. One of the great books of all time on this topic.
Okay.
Um, the so-called the novel that ushered in the modern era, which is of course I'm talking about Don Quixote.
Yes.
One of the great books. Man, I never actually read it before. People, I
Really?
think it's like
You never read it?
I never I read like the Wishbone version as a kid or something like that, which like the but no, I never read it before. And so I actually haven't read the whole thing. I've now finished part one. So it's two books, right? It's part one
Yep.
and then part two, which is most I just finished part one. Um and so Doug, I was like first of all, it's like the thing that everybody has sort of told me is like, why they read this book is like, you got to read this book, man. It's like one of the funniest books ever written. I was like, yeah, okay. And then turns out it is. It actually is one of the funniest
great.
books
It's
ever written.
really
Holy
great.
shit. But like, okay, let me actually, I'll give a sort of like, let me give my setup for listeners who may not have read Don Quixote. What is this book? What's the big deal? Why should you read it? The overall setup to Don Quixote is as follows, right? So you have this aging mid-level, like not so important landowner who's in Spain in the late 1500s, so post Ferdinand and Isabella era, in sort of like the slight decline of that peak Spanish golden era and the very very beginning of the actual like early modern period. And so he's this guy who later into his life he starts really getting into these books about chivalry and knights and King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table. And he gets into this idea that he should be one of these people. He's like, I'm a knight. I'm going to go be a knight. And he starts basically like, he becomes so committed to the bit that he starts play acting as a knight. Right. So he goes and puts on all this stupid fake armor. He gets his horse that he dubs Rocinante, which means
the original LARP. The original
LARPer. He's LARPing. He's LARPing. He gets his friend, this guy named Sancho, who accompanies around as squire. Right. And basically he pretends to be a knight all over the place, looking for adventure, charging windmills. You've heard the stories. And so the book plays out on 3 levels, right? Level 1 is the slapstick comedy level. So he's, hi Sylvie, have a good day. Level 1, the sort of like slapstick comedy level, is just him and his squire Sancho just having unbelievably bad things happen to him in slapstick comedy ways. He gets beaten up all the time by people. He is like gets into accidents where it's like he's like bad. It's like all of these unbelievably funny recountings of him like having really bad diarrhea because of something. It's like it's like an Adam Sandler movie, right? Just unbelievably well executed physical comedy as a result of this delusion of his that he's a knight, and everybody else around him being like, all right, man, like whatever, I guess I'll go along with this, right? So that's level 1. Level 2 of the book is deeply sad. It's like, oh my God, like this guy cannot face reality, right? He is unwilling. He's dug himself so far into this narrative hole that he can't get himself out, even though it is causing real harm to himself and to his friends. That's a recurring thing. It's like, as bad as he gets it, his friend gets it even worse every time. And it's like, your delusion is causing pain to other people, right? Like, and you can't get out of it. That's so sad, right? What you're doing is cope. But then the 3rd level, which is the deepest level of the book, is like, life is cope. Like, he's the hero of the book for doing this. Unironically, it's like life is coping with the stories that we tell ourselves in order to make it okay, right? And the big sort of amazing thing that happens over the course of this book is that all of the people around him sort of evolve from bemused, tolerating, and putting up with this to actively participating in maintaining his delusion because of this wonderful message, which is like, all we're really doing here is participating in the maintenance of other people's fantasies in order to make it okay. Right? It's like, I help your cope, you help my cope, and we are both better off, right? It's like, because life is just making it be okay, right? Which is it's this wonderful story, right? So highly recommend reading it. But I think it fits into this like level of theater that you have of life is theater. It's like, life is 3 levels of theater, right? Level 1 is the slapstick comedy level of theater.
Right.
Level 2 is the like, we are so deeply lying to ourselves all of the time, man. And then level 3 layer is just like, yeah, but that's life. Like, life is cope, and we help each other cope, and that's actually the highest form of friendship. It is holding up other people's cope, so that they don't have to face their fantasies breaking apart. Which I thought is like, it's a wonderful message, right? It's really the eternal story.
I love it.
So there you go. Like, that's summary. Don Quixote, ladies and gentlemen.
And it actually is, right? Like, we go through life confabulating, and we're always the hero of our own story, right? And what you sometimes need to remember is that you're the hero of your own story, but in many other people's stories, you're the villain. And that is a hard thing for some people to grasp, right? Because it's in the one part, they're like, I'm the hero here, right? And I am doing all of these heroic things, etc. And then you could have somebody, like, you could have dinner with them, and their story, you're the villain. Are you the villain in anyone's story, do you think?
Yeah, probably.
I use it as a litmus test. If you're not the villain in somebody's story, you really got to up your game, man.
It's like, have you ever been the main character on Twitter?
Exactly.
That's
Right.
right. Um,
And both of us have done a very good job, I would think, of avoiding that fate.
you know what came up to this morning, of thinking about that was, do you know the Odd Lots podcast with Joe Weisenthal and
Sure.
Tracy? Yeah.
Sure.
So they had on Nassim Taleb as a guest to talk about all kinds of stuff. And their title was just genius. It was, "This is why you're blocked by Taleb on Twitter."
Ah,
It's like he talks about it, and it was perfect. And it just made me so mad. Because like many esteemed people online, I have also been blocked by Taleb on Twitter. He's probably the block that I'm both most famous and most frustrated by. Or sorry, most proud and most frustrated by. I'm proud of being blocked by Taleb because that's a badge of accomplishment of any poster. But I'm frustrated by it because I didn't get, like, he blocked me very politely.
oh,
Like,
you
he was
didn't
actually,
get
he was
the
like
fuck
nice
you.
about it, which is, no, I didn't get, no, he is, it's not fucking, it's you imbecile. That's his
Yes,
word, right? He
that's
calls you
the
an
best one.
imbecile before he
That's the
blocks you.
best one.
I didn't get it.
Oh,
Oh,
man, that's
seriously ripped
awful.
off.
I can one
Um,
up you here, though. I can one up
yeah.
you. I blocked him. I blocked
Hmm.
him.
You
Why
blocked
did
him.
I
Okay.
why did I
Why'd you
block
why
him?
why did you block him? Yeah.
Because I've read all of his books. I thought
Mhm.
many of them were really profoundly good, and
Yeah.
I loved what a lot of the things he wrote about. I loved his Intellectual Yet Idiot series. I
Mhm.
loved it all, but I was getting to the point, Alex, where his juvenile histrionics online were making me think less of his actual body of work,
Mhm.
to the point where I can't remember why or what the event was, but he went on some, like, incredible tirade,
Mhm.
and I was just watching it, I'm like, if I keep watching, I'm gonna think so much less of his actual body of work
Mhm.
that it'll affect me, so fuck it, I'm just gonna block him.
I'm trying to think of other, like, comparable people like that whose personalities on Twitter have so shaped the interpretation of their, like, Joyce Carol Oates, maybe? Uh, um,
I don't follow her, so I don't know. I know of Joyce Carol Oates, of course.
surely some of her tweets have found her way onto your yeah, go Google Joyce Carol Oates Twitter
I will.
audience for a good time. Um, uh, uh, yeah,
Well, what about
but
okay, well, that brings
yeah,
us to Elon, of course,
sure. Oh, good,
and
yeah,
and
mhm,
and we now have the Doge dog
sure,
as the new mascot, and
right,
so I looked at it, I saw it, I started laughing out loud, honestly, I did,
yeah,
and so I put up a tweet with the Doge dog, like,
mhm,
laughing, doing one of these,
yeah,
right?
doing it with the head, yeah.
And I said, "Say what you will about him, this guy is entertaining as fuck." What do you think?
Um, God, there's so many like meta theories of Elon right now, right? Uh, I think sort of like the correct way to think about Elon is that Elon is a reply guy who wants to be a poster so bad, um, that he invented the world's best rocket company and the company that's going to make all the electric cars that's going to make the world go green, as a prelude to him doing reverse barbarians at the gate. The most the most yeah, it really is okay. Actually, that's probably the right launching off point is, should they make Barbarians at the Gate 2, the story of Elon buying Twitter? Right? First, Elon is like, first at like peak bubble, Elon is like, I'm gonna buy Twitter. Twitter's board is like, over our dead body, you're gonna buy Twitter. So 6 weeks later, Twitter is trading for 45 cents on the dollar or whatever. And then the board is like, psych, we're gonna force you to buy Twitter. He then tries everything he can at avoiding getting out of the deal, and absolutely nothing works. He ends up paying full price. Okay, that actually went by with people not really commenting. The world's richest man, a modern day Julius Caesar, is like, shit, like, I don't want to pay all this money. I'm going to try to throw all these tricks at the book to see if I can get out of paying this way. And the Twitter board, the clown car in a gold mine company board, gets him to pay 100 cents on the dollar. Man, truly reverse barbarians at the gate, Bizarro edition. He then promptly fired. Well, then it's like the current modern tragic history of Twitter, where it's like, he gets rid of everybody except for that selfie of like the 18 engineers. Remember that one when they're all in the war room, 2 a.m. and everybody's like, "Oh shit, he is gonna turn this around. Those guys look hardcore as fuck." With the whiteboard on the drawing of like Twitter's database structure, and it's like they're working on that. You guys are gonna make it. I was like, yeah. It doesn't crash, but then it's like, because then what happens? So they do Twitter Blue, and it's like what? It's like 4,500 people have signed up or something like that. It's like some tiny number of people, but yet this thing won't die, right? It can't die because we need it too much, right? We're all too addicted to Twitter for Twitter to actually die. So it can't die. It just has to live on in this incredibly bizarre, it's RGR Nabisco for the modern times. It's like,
it really is. I like, so the whole, I just read a thing by Lulu Maservi, who I think is a comms person for our era. And like, at first I just didn't get, right? So I think, I got the Twitter blue check fairy visited me. I never applied. I think it's because they gave Patrick a blue check mark. And so
Patrick. Sorry, Patrick does have the check mark, and you didn't.
Right.
This is in the old days.
In the old days,
Patrick had one, but not you. Okay.
No. Actually, we got them at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So I think what happened, because I never applied, and I asked Patrick, "Did you apply?" Because that's a very un-Patrick-like thing to do. And he was like,
"Right,
I didn't. It just showed up." And I said, "Same with me." So my theory was, they saw Patrick, podcast king. We got to verify this guy, right? And then they put on the old man.
There are for sure going to be fake Patricks with fake podcasts pumping random cryptocurrency.
You know what? Actually, that's a pretty good thesis, because that's when we both was pretty much at the height of the whole shitcoin thing. So maybe that's why they did it. I don't know. I still
wait a minute. Is this where we find out that Web3 breakdowns is actually entirely fake and it's done by a Patrick impersonator in order to? That's a great conspiracy theory.
I promised him I wouldn't tell anyone.
Web3 breakdowns is actually entirely deep fake content in order to pump shitcoins.
At the end of the year, it's all going to be revealed. It was all AI. It was all GPT-4.
It's true. I can actually speak. I'm qualified to speak on this because I did an episode on Web3 breakdowns, and it wasn't me. It was an AI version of me. I never actually consented to being on Web3 breakdowns. All of this is deepfake.
But think about that. Think of get out of jail free cards, right? No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. That's a deep fake. That wasn't me. Because somebody called me and they're like a security type person, right?
At Twitter?
No, not at Twitter.
At Twitter? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I get this.
Sorry, I lost the plot.
And he's like, you should have a safe word. And I'm like, what? And of course, I immediately.
What kind of full call is this?
I know exactly.
You on a Club Med or something?
Like, yeah, and I immediately go to the GIF from 30 Rock, right, where the wrestler is with Liz, and he's saying, "My safe word is keep going."
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is the way the conversation. I'm not kidding. I know the guy, right? So it's not like really weird. But hey, Jim, hey, what's going on? How you doing? I'm fine. Blah blah blah. You should get a safe word. And I'm like, what? This is taking a very unexpected turn. And he goes, right now, because you have a podcast with lots and lots and lots of episodes, they're going to be able to fake your voice super easy. And apparently, one of the big scams right now is they clone your voice. And then they call your elderly relatives.
Yeah,
that's and tell them, "Hey,
I'm in trouble. I'm backpacking out in Albania. I owe someone a kidney.
Grandma, you gotta help.
Grandma, I'm gonna need you to go into the drawer and get this piece of paper with 12 words written on it. Like, I had those 12 words into something. Yeah.
But so there's a great book, a science fiction book called The Fifth Science. And in it, he's got this little part where he says, we're a multi planet species in this book. And he's talking about planets that go into narrative collapse. And what he
Narrative
means by
collapse.
narrative collapse is everything has been so faked and nobody knows what's real, what's not real. And
Okay.
so literally the entire society begins to collapse, right? Because nobody knows what's real or not real. And I'm thinking, like, as he's telling me this, I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. But
Okay,
that
but how I don't understand how the safe word works though. It's a word that you never say, or it's a word that you say all the time on the podcast?
it's no. It's a word that only you tell your family and friends and business people.
Uh-huh.
If you get a call from me and it sounds just like me, and you think, wow, it's really
Oh,
weird.
you can say what's the word. Got it.
Yeah.
I thought this was for the podcast where it's
No.
like, hey everybody, it's Jim O'Sonnesly, Infinite Loops Pineapple.
That would be even better.
Yeah. When someone say, doesn't that stop working after the first one? It's a different secret word each episode. That's the goal of the listeners to figure out what the secret word is.
Remember Groucho Marx? What's my line, or what was the name of that? Say the secret word and win the $50. What was that?
I don't know
in
this.
the 50s. After
I wasn't alive in the 50s, Jim. I was born in 1988.
Neither was I. Smart guy. I did have the capacity to watch reruns. I mean, for Christ's sake, Jeremiah Lowen is your age, and he knows every Marx Brother movie.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
Well, no. Okay, bad example.
Tell me something
example.
surprising. Okay, so all right. So by the way, okay, listeners to the show. After you're done listening, call in, tweet at Jim, what you think the secret word for this episode was. And copy me, please, at Alex_Danco. Let us know what you think the secret word for this episode is. And if you get it right, we will send you Bitcoin to the wallet address of your choice.
Or we could in fact send them O'Shaughnessy Ventures swag.
Yeah, okay, that's a better idea. Yeah, okay. If the guest gets the secret word right, what should the secret word be?
Well, we have to figure that out, don't we? And we should figure that out off air.
We should figure. It's probably a good idea. Let's one step ahead of me.
Yeah, we
all right.
Off air.
Add Jim, at Alex with what you think secret is.
But what do you think? Like, I had my mother-in-law, who's 96, for dinner that very same night. And I asked her, Terry, if you got a phone call from me and I told you to, like, send me a check, or when this nice man calls, give him your banking details.
Sure.
What would you do? And she goes, well, if you told me to do it, I probably would. And I'm like, okay, this is bad.
That's not good. Yeah, it's
bad. How do we solve it?
Commercial. I don't know. I don't know what it is. This is hard. I mean, look. Okay, let's back up. Scams are hard generally.
Yeah.
Right? Scams are a thing that happen, right? And there are old scams and there are new scams, and people get used to the old ones, and then we get new ones and things like that. All of these sorts, like, I don't know, two versions of the future. One is like same as it ever was. People get better at scamming, and we get better at filtering out the scams, and then people move on to new scams. Version two is no. This is actually the one that breaks everyone. In 15 years, we're all going to be hopelessly in debt to like one huge call center operator in the Balkans, who is going to just actually have all of our identities and all of our bank account passwords. And this is how this is going to be chapter 2. Cold War gets restarted, but on cybercrime. Write a sci-fi book about it.
I like.
I don't know.
I like it. Because we are incredibly adaptive as a species, I think your first bit is right.
Hmm.
That like we become inured to the scams, right? And then they think up new ones, right?
Mhm.
Because the whole idea of a con man, that was short for confidence.
Confidence.
And
Yeah.
and the original confidence man admitted to it. It was like
Mhm.
basically he said, I just build up people's confidence in both themselves, and in me.
Well,
I
that's
I
the essence. That's the essence of a good lie, right? A good lie is not just one where you've made the lie. The good lie is one where the recipient of the lie has a very powerful reason why they want to believe it because they cannot face being wrong, right? It's like there is some reason why they are reinforcing the mechanism of not wanting to investigate whether it could be false,
exactly.
right? Like it's a very, very important part of how these things work.
Super important. And it's also one of the reasons why one of the things that I have noticed for a long time, but now I'm noticing it even more. Very, very smart people are actually much better at deluding themselves than maybe not so bright people. Because what
With
happens,
more practice.
much more practice, but also they build better stories. They build like they bulletproof, they steel man their own fantasy and hallucination to the point where like they believe it so deeply, the indoctrinators themselves are deeply indoctrinated, and then they go and spread
Mhm.
it everywhere else.
Yeah. Well, you're back to Don Quixote again, right? Because it's
I
like
was about to
within
make
this
this
novel, which is
transition.
about self-deception, it's like there are in the style of these great books, right? You have these sort of sub books, which is like someone in the book tells a story, and then that story is like 5 chapters long or whatever. And it's like all these different stories of they're all stories on the theme of self-deception, right? And like this the incredible skill and craft within which people do this. Um, it sort of makes me wonder if like this is actually something that people were more aware of centuries ago because we were not yet lying to ourselves that we did not do this. I don't know. This is on the generally interesting topic of what are we dumber at now than 400 years ago? Which there are certainly things. What are those things, right? It's like it's not all like how to, cook food off the land and things like that. It's like there are definitely interpersonal phenomena that we have gotten dumber about.
No question. And like, we go all the way back to even pre-Socratic uh Greek philosophers, and self-deception was like topic one, right?
Mhm. Um, yeah, it's the thing that is so interesting about the topic of self-deception is that it is basically never single player, right? Is that there are always other people around you who are complicit in this thing, and that's an essential part of why it works. And again, to the point of Don Quixote of La Mancha, is like, is it in fact heroic to support the delusions of others and prevent them from crashing down? The answer is quite possibly. It may be that this is actually our life's work, is to support the delusions of others. um,
Well, and
so
that's
yeah,
the whole white lie genre, right? Like you really wouldn't, I don't know that you'd
I,
want to live in a world of absolute 100% honesty, right?
oh God, no, you don't. Um,
God, it would be
what's
horrible.
the
It would be
what's
horrible.
there's that there's that study. I don't know if you call this a study or if it's just sort of a piece of wisdom, which is like imagine or it's the great example of like why opacity is good. It's like imagine you have a group of 10 friends in high school or whatever, and you have 10 friends, and it is in fact determinable what the ranking of coolness of those people are. Right? If you actually set out to do it, you could figure out who was number 1 and who was number 10,
Yeah,
right? What actually happens in real life? Right? So it's like in real life, you do in fact know who number 1 is and number 10 is, and not anybody else. Right? It is essential that you have the bookends established, but non-clarity in the middle. Right? The
exactly.
reason why is establishing a number 1 anchors everybody to as good as that guy.
Mhm.
Establishing a number 10 establishes everybody as being better than that guy, except for that person feels happy to be a part of the group that is cooler than them. Right.
Yep.
So that's okay because there's only one person. But for everybody else in the middle, you really, really do not want to know. Because if you suddenly one day woke up and found yourself all wearing name tags that's like 4 or 6 or something, it's like Well, the people in the top half would immediately try to detach themselves from the people in the bottom half. And the people in the bottom half would all try to fight among themselves to escape from each other, right? And the whole group cohesion would get destroyed. Right. It's like you don't want to know, right? You really, really don't want to know.
Exactly. And pecking order, right? That's Will Storr's the status game. And he had his earlier work also touched on, actually it wasn't him, it was William Bloom. He had the Lucifer principle, but there was a
What's
guy.
that?
It's actually a really good book.
It's a book.
You
Okay.
should, you should read it. I'll
Okay.
email you the title. Anyway, so there was I love the fact that there are people in the world who do this shit. Okay. So he was home from college, right? And this is in the 1920s or the teens, the 1900s. Anyway, and he gets this idea, his parents live on a farm, and he gets this idea, I wonder why the chickens always eat in the same order, right? It's always the
Pecking
first,
order. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
so he decided to find out. And
Huh.
so what he did was he went to the neighbor, borrowed a new hen
Uh-huh.
from the neighbor's coop,
Mhm.
threw the hen in with the other ones. Mayhem, absolute
Sure.
mayhem. And they literally pecked each other, thus the
Mhm.
pecking order.
Mhm.
From the alpha hen
Yeah.
basically is unscathed. She doesn't
Sure.
have any
Yep.
peck marks on her. The
Yeah.
bottom hen is dead, is
Oh.
dead. They pecked it to death.
Ugh.
And then, but what's really interesting is after the melee is over, again, order comes back. And the new chick who was introduced finds her place in the pecking order.
So is the moral of the story of this deeply nuanced social thing about status and rank, or is it that there can only be 10 hens? There's only room for 10 hens.
I think
They saw an 11 person, they were like, we gotta kill
God
someone.
damn it.
Yeah. One of you's gotta go.
No new hens. We know
Right.
what
Maybe
happens. It's mayhem.
Occam's razor. It's not actually about status. It's just like this is how much food there is.
Exactly. And
If there are 11 of us, we'll all slowly go hungry and
yes,
all be worse off over a prolonged, agonizing amount of time. Whereas if we just get rid of that one hen over there, we'll be fine. We'll have enough to eat.
very easy.
Maybe that's it. We've been
It's the-
overanalyzing it the whole time.
It's the simplified trolley problem, man.
Right.
It's just like,
Um,
okay, let's just get rid of that hen.
um, I wonder. That's true. Well, yeah. Welcome to old sociological studies that have been overanalyzed. Stanford. Who was that? What's the simplified Stanford prison experiment? Yeah. Turns out that the guards were just jerks. They had a lot of shit going on at home.
Exactly. You could tell it was the whole body
Yeah.
language. They were a self-selected sample. That was the problem. They all came in and they were all fucking grumpy and pissed off because of all the bad shit going on at home. And so the researchers subconsciously said, you know what? I'm going to make you a guard. I think that's it.
Ah,
There we go.
Maybe that's right. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere.
So now we are literally in a world where nothing reproduces. No social experiment reproduces.
That's right. That's right. Sorry, science. Nice try.
Let's try science.
You're not gonna pull a fast one on us.
But like,
this is truly the Chamath school of thought that I was trained on so well, right? Who
Yeah.
cares if it's true? It's true now.
well, and again, in my theory that Seinfeld covered everything that was worth covering, right?
Mhm.
You remember
Yeah.
the scene where George is saying to Jerry,
Uh-huh.
it's not a lie if you
If
believe
you
it."
believe it. Right. Seinfeld is one of the great shows on self-deception.
Oh, totally.
One of the great canons. I really like have we talked on this show about Seinfeld as the best way of explaining the id, the ego, and the oral versus anal ego types?
Oh,
We talked about this?
we're going to right now.
Going to? Yeah, okay. All right. So a really nice way to sort of explain like, hey, what's going on with this whole idea of like the id versus the ego versus different like ego characters that the ego can take, and like a really, really simplified version of this is like, there are three ways that you can be as a person, plus this fourth way, which is the id, which is you can be the child, the parent, or the adult. Right. And this is covered in a bunch of different topics. One book about this is a book called Games People Play.
Yeah,
Great book, strong rec.
I know the
But
book.
it's like you can play the role of the child, which is like the ego state of the child, which is basically seeking parenting. You can play the role of the parent, which is seeking to do parenting, or you can play the role of the adult, which is basically matured beyond the ability to do those things.
Exactly.
Right. So the general idea that you can hold in working is like, as we go through our lives, we are periodically switching between these three ego states all the time. Right. Sometimes you're one, sometimes the other. And the important thing is that the parent ego state is not the state of being a grown up. The parent ego state is the parent as imagined by the child.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, as a child, you have these two concepts, right, called child and parent. And then as you grow up, you mature past that into this form called adult. Right. So back to Seinfeld, it's like the basic idea of Seinfeld is you have these four characters, right? You have Jerry, who is adult, right? He's the ego. Yep. He's sort of the center of the show. He is not funny, but he brings out all the funniness of everybody else, right? He holds the thing together. Then you have George, who is the child, right? Yep. You have Elaine, who is parent, and then you have Kramer, who is the id, right? And what makes the show work is that every time a pair of people is having a conversation, that is the dialogue between those two ego states. So Jerry talking to Kramer is dialogue between the id and the ego. Right. George talking to Kramer is the dialogue between id and child, right? Jerry talking to George is child adult, right? And so on. And like the quintessential thing that happens in Seinfeld, right? It's like the standard mechanic of the show is two people talking and establishing a dialogue that is like, let's say like George and Jerry or something. And then suddenly a third character enters the room and the dynamics of the whole conversation change, right? It's like, oh, the id has entered the chat, right? Or the parent or Elaine shows up, the parent has enters the chat, right? And you know that great thing, which is that like every single one of them enters the room differently.
Yes.
So Kramer always bursts in theatrically, whereas Elaine always rings and then it's a minute of delay before she arrives, right? Because like, oh, the parent is showing up, whereas George is already there, right? There's like, there are all these rules, right, to how this is structured that are all just really, really, really well done because Jerry and Larry David are these comedic geniuses that understand these things. But yeah, like it's a very useful thing to, if you're trying to understand this, like, oh, like how do these ego dynamics play out? You can just basically substitute for what would the Seinfeld characters do?
I love
we know them really well. Very useful heuristic.
That works on so many different levels. And of course, Larry David, if you're a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm, you see that Larry was throttled on network TV, obviously. But he is the king of the comedic arc, in my opinion. If it's mentioned in the beginning of a show, it is always resolved, almost always hysterically.
Yes.
By the end of the show.
I was thinking about Larry David. I was thinking about Fatwa the musical. There's a New Yorker profile on Salman Rushdie after he got stabbed. They spent slightly too long on he was in Curb Your Enthusiasm. I shouldn't joke about this. This is not funny.
No, I know, but it is like, generally speaking, I can't remember whose line it was, but my friend Dan McMurtry was the one who highlighted it. The usual result to expect is the most hysterical.
Yeah. Well, that's the Elon buying Twitter rule. It's
right.
Like, if Elon says he's going to buy Twitter, then the funniest outcome is Twitter then forcing Elon to buy them.
To buy it.
And following through on it. The funniest outcome.
Which is actually a very entertaining outcome, right? No?
Very entertaining outcome. Oh my God. All right, we got 15 minutes left before I gotta go. What else is on your mind? What else is on your list?
What else was
where are we in getting through the points?
Where are we? Well, we don't have any points as usual, remember, because anything that I actually write down, we positively have to avoid.
Yeah, so what is it that we can't talk about?
Okay, we cannot talk about Girardian explanations for taboo desires.
Yeah, good. No, we're all over that. That was last year.
Yeah, I know. That's so. Yeah, I mean that's busted, right? It's done.
Gerard's so over.
Yeah, he is. He's really over. He had
He's
his
done.
moment,
Can't.
right? And now he's canceled. Okay, well, what about, to what extent are great innovations already baked into the system?
Um, what extent are great innovations already based into the system? Okay, is this a like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear thing
No,
where it's like
no,
an
I
idea
think
whose
it's
time
more.
it's like if an idea has time if an idea's time has come, then it will be invented in parallel 3 different times,
Yeah,
like
that's it.
calculus or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
was
it. That's like
calculus baked into the system when
Leibniz and
Leibniz and Newton
right.
both figured
Yeah.
it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the answer is it, or is it baked in?
Um. Um. It may be that the thing that is actually happening when these discoveries are happening in parallel is a set of circumstances that allows society to temporarily tolerate the people who are hallucinating enough to have the ideas first.
I like
Because
that.
all new ideas are lunacy at the time,
Yeah.
right? And you have this idea of was like maybe a calculus was invented a few different times before, and people were like, "Well, that guy's crazy," right? That's not how math works.
Right.
Um, until we were ready to accept that a couple times. Um,
Well, you know what? That picks up on Bucky Fuller's idea of you're either tuned in or not tuned in, right? And he
mhm,
uses the example of the microscopic world.
uh,
Until we invented a microscope, right? We had no fucking idea what was going
get
on
down
there.
there.
And then, but he makes the point, which is kind of similar to the point you're making, which is the first guy, what's his name? Lewin, the
Lowenbuck or something.
anyway, so he invents it and he's like looking through it and he's like, holy shit, 200 years go by
Bumping
because
down there.
everybody is like, you're batshit crazy, man. There are no
Mm.
little things going on. So I think that's not a bad theory, actually.
Yeah, I wish I knew offhand what the reaction. Okay, so the classic thing that one that everybody talks about is like Mendel counting peas in his
Mm.
garden and figuring out genetics. Um, and then it's some number of many years later, we actually see DNA, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right." Um, did people
Well,
like? I don't
also,
actually know
but think
what
about
extent.
the William Blake. His
Uh,
drawing is a DNA double helix. You've seen that, I'm sure.
yeah, well, it's like we figure out the whole thread that all goes back to Mendelian genetics, where he's like, "Yeah, that guy counting peas was right." Um, And it's like, I don't actually know at the time if people were like, "Oh, yes," like, "Oh, you're counting all the color your Punnett squares are very good, sir," or if everybody was like, "You quack," like,
Oh,
"What?"
I can tell you,
Yeah.
you quack, right?
I don't know,
Because
I'll have to go look.
it
Well,
was like,
he was a monk, so people might have respected him.
there's a great book called Mendel's Dwarfs, and I'm trying to remember the author. It's, it's excellent. He's a great literary fiction author. I can't remember his name,
Well,
but
okay, if you bring this back to the theme of our show, right? It's like maybe the thing that has to happen for these breakthroughs to make sure is for people to have their Sancho Panzas around with them to sustain the delusion along the way to making the genius insight that becomes indisputable. Right?
well,
Because like to have the insight that's indisputable, you have to go through this period of time of people calling you crazy, right? And
absolutely.
your
And
ability to sustain that gets you there or not. That's the great filter. Yeah,
pers
maybe that's the great filter of the ideas whose time has come, which is most ideas are filtered out by people being unwilling to talk to listen to you,
yeah.
right? Like on the way where you're still wrong, but you're getting at something.
Well, it's like,
You know that state where it's like it's like you're still wrong, but it's interesting.
yeah,
It's like
it's
how
like
long can you tolerate that?
it's like the Jed McKenna quote, "Crazy is a numbers game." And then his conversant says, "You mean?" And he goes, "Yeah, if enough people believe it, ain't crazy anymore."
If enough people, it's the exact reverse opposite. It's the exact reverse of it's not panicking if you're first.
Right. Then it's
Inverse
just,
quote day.
it's prudence. It's prudence.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't panic. I just saw the situation and acted upon it. Everyone
What's
else
that
is
line?
panicking.
What's that line even from? Oh, it's from Margin Call. That's what it's
Yeah.
from.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Jeremy
yeah, yeah.
Irons being like, "It's not panicking if you're first out the door.
And
If you're
okay,
first out the door, it's not called panicking."
we can actually margin call, if we've only got another 10 minutes, like, greatest movie, in my opinion, having been a Wall Street guy, right? Margin Call is the most realistic of all of those movies.
I think there are two schools of thought on Margin Call, right? School of thought one is what you said, is it's the most realistic, it's really good, like it says everything correctly. This is what it's like. Blah, blah. School of thought two is it's boring. And like literally and to me, okay, Margin Call to me, the reason why I liked the movie, and I think the reason why it stands up on second or third rewatch, is you realize who are the main characters that the movie is actually about. Right? You realize what actually happened, which is Demi Moore and what's her counterpart, who's the head of the division head or whatever. The two people who both report to Jeremy Irons.
Yes.
Right? Where it becomes very clear over the course of the movie that like they've known about this for like a year. Yes. Right? And they both could not say anything. Right. And then they're both trying to blame each other, and one guy's faster. Right. And so he lives and she dies. Right. It's like everything else is basically structure around that. Figuring out how to get the story to unfold. And then you realize it's like both of them are like, yeah, they fooled. Of course they knew.
And it's also,
we all knew.
The underlying theme is the whole private knowledge versus public knowledge, right? Like, as you say, they both knew. They knew that for a year, right?
And again, the opposite of them is Kevin Spacey's character, who is like, I don't want to know.
Exactly.
How do you think I've survived here so long? Do not tell me. I'm leaving the room. Yeah, that's right. And then he went home, and it becomes clear that he loved his dog more than his son.
Yes, much more.
Okay.
Yeah, burying the dog at the end.
That's right.
Like, I like that though, because it also the undercurrent of the public knowledge versus private knowledge, and preference falsification, and lying to others and yourself because you don't want to know, which feeds right back into our original theme here, right? Which is Sancho saying, "Yeah, man, you really are a knight."
Yeah. Or the the Sancho and Margin Call was, what's his name? The analyst.
Yes.
Who just is like tagging along the whole time, just being like, how much money does that guy make? Hey, how much money does that guy make? It's like, shut the fuck up. Why are you here? Go away.
Always that one character you've got to have there, and so that everyone is like, why was he not?
Why is he here?
Why is he here? Is he provided any useful transfer or anything to the story? Okay, so the next question then becomes, what is your favorite movie about Wall Street, just in terms of pure entertainment?
In terms of pure entertainment, I mean, Pi was really good. Let me see. I mean, Wall Street, just the classic, the movie like that movie's killer. That has to be, that's a
you know what I love about Wall Street is that Oliver Stone made that movie explicitly to expose Wall Street. He wanted,
and then everybody was like, "This," it's like The Social Network. 20 years later, everybody's like, "Wow, this is exactly what I want to do."
It was the best recruiting film.
Yeah,
working on Wall Street that of any of them. And, well, Wall Street is pretty good.
Can I say something super heretical?
Of course.
I didn't find Trading Spaces that funny.
Really?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was funny. It's not on my podium.
Huh.
All right.
Yeah, no, it is okay. That is okay. I liked it. I haven't watched
I liked it, but
I haven't watched it in a long time. It's got good gifts.
Yes. That's true.
That's my new thing. It's like, I judge all of these movies and the cultural artifacts simply are they good gifts?
Are they, is the meme game strong? Can you just distill an entire vibe into a 3-second looping video?
Yeah, that's it, right?
What about you? What are your favorite Wall Street movies?
I love The Big Short, which I just recently rewatched with my wife, who we both looked at each other and were like, wow, that actually was a pretty good movie. We hadn't seen it in a while. I like the book as well. I can't figure out why they haven't made a good movie about Liar's Poker. Same author.
I don't know. That's a great question.
I mean, right?
Maybe it's one of those just sort of truces where everybody agrees not to because the movie won't be as good, so everybody agrees not to do it.
Exactly. But that, Bonfire of the Vanities, right? One of Wolf's
Yeah,
more
that's a great that book is amazing.
book is amazing. The
Book's so
movie's
good.
horrible.
But I've never seen it.
Oh, it's
Okay,
unwatchable.
I guess I won't.
It's like literally, if you love the book, the movie is unwatchable.
Another Wall Street book that was just dramatically better than the movie was Smartest Guys in the Room, the Enron book.
Totally.
That book was so good. By
Amazing.
what's her name? Bethany McLean.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah,
I love her stuff. She's really good on those, but horrible movie.
Yeah.
Great book.
We need to have there needs to be a movie about 2021 and about like the year of SPAC insanity.
Oh, we are great minds, man. I was thinking,
yeah, there needs to be a movie about this.
Great movie, right? About
well, I mean, that they're going to make a movie. They're going to make a movie about FTX and about all of that. Like that has to be something.
Totally.
I'm trying to think. Like I just want there to be a movie where I can have my cameo appearance where I give my little anecdote about the Waterloo co-op student and the SPACs. Have I told you about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell our audience.
I'll tell the audience and then I gotta go. Okay. So this is, back in 2017 or something like that. When I was at Social Capital, Chamath sits us down and he's like, all right, listen up, everybody. All hands meeting in the kitchen. We're going to do this thing called SPAC. This is going to be the new way companies go public. It's going to be so much better at all these ways. We're just geniuses. We're going to do it. And of course, because he's Chamath and he has the reality distortion field around him, where if you're in a physical room with him, everything he says is the smartest thing you've ever heard. We're all like, oh, wow, like, it's so great. So I'm going to go home to Canada thinking like, oh, this is going to be so cool, blah, blah, blah. And I'm I find myself like at a party or something with a bunch of like Waterloo students. I've had some drinks at this point. I'm sort of talking this thing and I'm running my mouth. I'm like, oh, we're going to do this thing called SPAC. And like, remember one of these kids is like, oh, we know what SPACs are. He's like, I took a fake mining company public with a SPAC as a Waterloo co-op student. That was the moment where it's like, I'm in danger. I realized like, oh no, something's wrong. It's like, why do Canadians all know what SPACs are? And it turns out that like the most dangerous question you can ask in finance is, why do all the Canadians know about X?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you should be as far away from X as possible. All right, I'm leaving on that note because I gotta go.
All right.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jim. See you.